Everybody tells you to negotiate. Your mom, your friends, your colleagues, social media, even your dog tells you to negotiate. So you know that you need to negotiate. But how do you actually do that? I have found over the years that there are certain things that help you negotiate because they give you power. I call them the negotiation power-ups. And today I want to talk about them because sometimes they're not as intuitive as I wish they would be, because it's very intuitive to negotiate. But how do you actually do that? That's a bit of a mysterious process. So I have 10 things that I want to recommend you that will be negotiation power-ups, and you can add them on to your negotiation skills in that order or outside of that order. All of those will be add-ons to your negotiation skills. All right, let's get started because we have a lot of material to go through. Number one is knowing your value, and it might be the toughest sometimes because our inner critic and our, low self-esteem and, self-doubt gets in the way, and we're like, are we really that great? And all those things. But knowing your value and understanding it and bringing it to the table when you're actually negotiating, whether it's in person or whether it's over email, understanding that, knowing what is the foundation of why you're asking for what you're asking is very important. Sometimes it's easier to understand your own value when it's done through a third person perspective, through third person eyes. Imagine that you're your friend or somebody who knows you, a colleague, and seeing you, what do they see in you, right? Or you're someone who knows you well, right? It doesn't have to be an outsider. It can be someone who's really close to you, well, a friend, but someone who's really close to you. How would they describe you? What you bring to the table. If you want additional ideas, additional perspective, actually ask those people, what are you bringing to the table? What are your redeeming values? What are the qualifications you're bringing to the table? Basically create this 360 image of who you are and what value you're bringing to the table. It's really important to understand what you can offer whoever you're working with, whether it's a potential employer, whether it's a potential client, whether it's a potential anyone, right? We negotiate all the time. We negotiate with our partners on what we're gonna have for dinner, or we negotiate all the time. So knowing your value, especially when it comes to money, is very important. Power up number 2 is doing your research. Doing your research on the person that you're talking to, but also doing your research on what you can bring this person, your market value, and how much this person or this employer should value you. And the first thing that comes to mind is researching the market value in terms of skills and the salary, that skills, experience, salary, all of those things that how the market values it. And also doing the research on the other party, right? What are their goals? What are their needs, right? All of that is so incredibly valuable, and it will give you not only confidence, but also talking points and a perspective which will help you navigate this whole negotiation process. Power up number 3 is knowing how you're solving someone else's problem. So, and this goes into the research part as well, but this kind of builds out of that. They need you for something. They need you to solve a problem. Whether it's a client, they need you to do X, right? They need you to do a certain service, or they need your product to solve a problem. Or if it's an employer, they need to fill a gap. They need you to solve a problem within their organization. Knowing what it is that you're solving and then matching it to your value will give you a huge power up, a huge boost in your negotiation skills and your confidence, how you present yourself. And, knowing that will make you understand your value and not budge if the other party is being manipulative and is trying to tell you that you're not worth what you're trying to ask for, right? So connecting these dots is very, very powerful. So knowing what problem you're solving is essential. Another booster for you. Negotiation power up number 4 is listening to the other person, using your active listening skills and understanding what are their goals, essentially. They have goals, right? And they want to make sure that they come out, like they pursue those goals, that they fulfill their goals. And you can align with those goals, understanding them and asking questions about, what are they trying to achieve is, and maybe, maybe not that directly, but basically trying to understand what are their goals so that you can align with them is very important, because maybe they can't budge on, let's say you're talking to an employer, maybe they can't budge on the salary. However, they can give you more stock options, or maybe they can give you more things. Understanding what is their goal, right? Like maybe finding a certain candidate and, not going over the budget of the salary that's allocated for this role, for example. Understanding that will give you ways to navigate this discussion in a way that is mutually beneficial, because at the end of the day, you want it to be mutually beneficial. It's not one party wins and the other one loses. No, like you have to find something that works for both of you. And listening, asking questions, understanding what the other person's goals are, because the other person needs to look good in front of their management, right? Or if it's a client, they need to solve a problem. They have a goal, right? And again, like it all goes to the problem, all goes to the goals. Like knowing all of that, doing your research and listening to this person brings so much value. Identifying their goals and priorities too. So like I need to mention that, because priorities and goals are similar but also different. So watch out for their goals and priorities. Negotiation power booster number 5 is knowing your non-negotiables, right? So, for example, you want to have a flexible schedule. Let's say that you need that lifestyle for some reason. And when it comes to this discussion, you're able to be flexible on other things. For example, how many days off you have, or your salary, or certain benefits, or stock options, all of those things. Understanding what are your non-negotiables is very important, because then you can be flexible with all of the other things. So identifying those is incredibly important before you go into a negotiation. That's another power booster, because you know what you can play around with and what you can't touch, because then you end up coming out in a solution that works for you, because again, we want to make sure that it works for you. It should work for the other party too, so you're flexible on the other things, but non-negotiables have to be there. Number 6, and probably my favorite one, is being comfortable with saying no. Negotiation is all about both parties needing each other, right? You're solving someone else's problem, or the other way around, right? And finding a solution that works for you is the goal. But sometimes if you understand that the conditions of this engagement are not beneficial for you, and they cross certain boundaries, or maybe they don't respect your non-negotiables, being able to say no is incredibly powerful. And I know that not everybody has that privilege sometimes, and sometimes you just need a job, and that's absolutely okay, right? But as you build your experience, as you build your portfolio, being able to say no is such a powerful tool. And you have no idea how many clients came back to me and were happy to accept my non-negotiables. And, in that case, it was the fee. How many of them came back after I said no? Because a lot of them just expect you not to be able to say no. So being able to say no and knowing in your head that you're ready to walk away, because when you're saying no, you gotta mean it. You can't bluff, right? Because otherwise the other party will never ever trust you again, and this will be just, bad foundation, like a toxic relationship. Being able to say no and doing it with confidence is such a power booster. And again, I'm telling you, I'm not saying that this happens every single time, but the amount of clients that came back to me after I said no to a certain number, and then they went up to the asking, like what I was asking for. I don't know the percentage, but probably like 70%. Negotiation power booster number 7 is thinking through your other options. And this kind of flows out of being comfortable with saying no, because when you say no, you gotta go to your other options. And sometimes that just means not having this deal, not having this job, and thinking through that and being happy with your other options, like your plan B, or maybe you have other opportunities lined up, right? Maybe you have other clients. Maybe you have, other options. Being happy with those and thinking through them is essential, because that gives you that confidence to say no. The other person will sense whether you're confident or not. And sometimes it's a psychological thing, right? So this is pretty clear when it comes to searching for jobs and having other offers lined up. But what if you don't have another offer lined up? Well, maybe your other option is to continue working where you are working right now. Or maybe your other option is to continue searching until you find something else that's better. So thinking through that and being okay with that is super important. I actually covered this topic in a blog post and another video that I talked about that I have created. So if you want to learn more about this concept, I will leave a link to it in the description so you can learn more about thinking through your other options, and not necessarily when you have other offers or other clients lined up, when you just don't have anything else to come back to, how to think that through. Negotiation power booster number 8 is knowing all of the different aspects that you can negotiate. A lot of us think of negotiation when it comes to jobs, for example, or clients. Well, let's start with jobs. With jobs as, you can negotiate your salary, or maybe you can negotiate your stock options. But what about benefits? What about flexible work schedule? What about, days off are in benefits and all that stuff? There's a spectrum of things that you can negotiate on, and it's limited to your imagination. It's limited to, obviously, to the other person's range of power, but still, you can bring these things up, and sometimes you can come up with ideas that are so outside of the box that work for both of you, and that are aligned with your goals and with the person who is interviewing you goals. The other thing is with clients, for example, there are so many things that you can negotiate on. I've been negotiating on, of course, the fee and all that stuff, but also rights, content rights, exclusivity, and all of these different things that that come into the picture that are there. You just sometimes don't see them. But broaden your view, really think through the whole spectrum of all of the different things that you can negotiate, because it gives you power. It's a power booster because you can still have your non-negotiables and be flexible on those things. Or maybe those things will actually make that whole deal better if, something is kind of lacking in that offer structure, let's say. Negotiation power boosters number 9 is developing rules or conditions. This has been extremely helpful for me as a business owner who has so many opportunities to say yes, and so many different projects that I can work on and take on, and so many different, things that I can do. However, creating rules around what I do and what I don't do and how I do certain things has been extremely helpful when it comes to negotiation, because, first of all, I'm not spreading myself too thin, and I guess that's not very negotiation oriented, but also it made me, it kind of has created non-negotiables for me, and I don't have to advocate for those non-negotiables. I just say, this is how I work with people. And that helps you navigate those conversations because you have a certain format, a certain workflow of how you do things. And I find it more applicable to business than maybe to, working with clients, your side hustle, all those things, than to maybe job offers. But I'm sure you can find applicability of this tool, or maybe you have found that you have been already doing that during that process yourself. So yeah, keep that in mind for the next time you're negotiating, or, think back, reflect on how you have been negotiating, and maybe there's something that stands out to you that you have already done that really worked. And when you repeated, there was a pattern that really worked, maybe just create a workflow, create rule of how you engage with people, how you do these things and all that stuff, because it's not just about the company having rules, but it's also about you having rules, right? And the company that fits you well will probably respect those, right? And finally, negotiation power booster number 10 is experience. Experience, 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 experience. Why? Because, well, it gets easier. You know your worth, you know how to do things, you have developed certain answers that you use, right? Certain ways to phrase things. And finally, it also gives you more knowledge on how you can go about this, right? You may have negotiated something that you would have never thought about before, and now you have that in your experience backpack, and now you know how to approach that conversation, right? So the more experience you have, the better. That has definitely been the case with me, because I have been, whenever I meet a new situation where I negotiate in a certain way, I make a mental note of that, and next time that's on the table. Like, that tactic, that strategy is on the table. And yeah, the more experienced you are, the easier it will be. Honestly, I cannot reiterate that enough. And that, like, the more you negotiate, the more confidence you will have in all of the things that we have discussed. In doing all of those things that we have discussed, you would have developed language, and you will know your worth, because you know that people have recognized it before in conversations like this, right? In negotiation. And speaking of developing language, I will do another video on a topic, but that has been such an important tool when it comes to negotiation for me, because it can be hard. And especially when you need to be able to communicate your worth every single time, especially over email. So I have been using canned responses that I have been customizing for every single engagement, of course, that have helped me so much. So I will do another video on how canned responses have transformed my business from automation, obviously saving time and all that stuff, to actually giving me power, like helping me understand my worth, and like redoing it over and over again, and learning those things, and being comfortable with saying no and all that stuff. So watch out for that video. Turn on those bell notifications when you're subscribing to this channel, not to miss it, because it's going to be good. It's a lot of knowledge that I want to share with you. All right, so that commences the 10 different power boosters when it comes to negotiation, my list of them. If you have anything else to add, please do so in the comments. I'd be super curious to see what has worked for you, or if you have any experiences with the points that I have listed today. Please share your stories. I love hearing negotiation stories. They're honestly the best, because it's such a strange thing sometimes. But the more we do it, the more stories we hear about it, the better we are at it. Like this video if you've enjoyed it, and share it with a friend who is negotiating every single day. And again, let's be honest, that's everybody. So just share with all of your friends, We can also be friends on other social media. You can find me as Coding Blonde. Have a wonderful time today you're currently experiencing. Bye.